What's going on, guys? Blake Hawthorn, Itshisturf. I'm out here in front of our 3-acre pond build, and we are jumping into week 1 of our series. Last week was the vision. It's kind of like the pre-series episode, but today is going to be talking about finding the right location for the pond, finding the right contractor, the things that you have to do to prep and figure out if a location will actually work for a pond, and then breaking ground, clearing the land, and getting ready to start pushing some dirt. So what we'll do is we'll give you a sneak peek each week of what's going on. As you can see, the pond's full of water. There is grass seed and straw being spread over the hillside, but you're also going to get to jump into the studio and do a flashback of what's going on leading up to this point here. So let's go ahead, let's head over to the studio with me and Kevin, and let's give you guys the play-by-play of how it all started. So before we could break ground, we had to decide where we were going to place the pond. And my first initial was to go there in front of the house between my house and my dad's, kind of there between the roads. But we ended up settling behind the house because my parents had adopted 9 children, one of them being a 6-year-old with special needs. And they just didn't feel comfortable with the pond being that close to their house. So we settled with the area there behind the house that we're kind of zooming in on. And you guys can see here where we start breaking ground. This is the first step of the pond process once we figured out where we were going, and that was going to be out here clearing the brush, getting all the land kind of cleared so we could see what was going on. Have to do that before we can ever shoot grade. But I've got Kevin here with me in the studio, and we're just going to take you guys through, like we said, play-by-play of the process. And over the next several weeks, you guys are going to get to see just the entire building process of this pond, from clearing to water filling it up.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that the pond's actually done at this point, and we're looking back almost a year ago.
Right. Yeah, because when we started, we talked about it in the last video where we were saying it was over 2 years ago when I started dreaming this up, talking with pond builders, trying to figure out, who I was going to hire to do it, but then also where it's going to go. And I didn't realize everything that goes into that process. I just thought, like, you want a pond? And just like, hey, go over there, let's dig a hole, and let's build a pond. But that's not it. So one of the big things about the placement of the pond was valleys, so that you have runoff. So you need to collect so many acres of runoff for so many acres of pond. Right. And that's something I didn't understand, but after meeting with several pond builders, that's what they kind of explained to me if you don't have a good water source.
Yeah, and that area behind your house is a nice little valley. You can really see, if you look back at the picture at the beginning, you can almost see where the water was running. So you can kind of see that runoff area, and the fact that you have it drops in level from one side to the other, it gave you a perfect spot for the levee.
Yeah, so from the start of the pond over by the shop area to the back of the pond, which is, over the span of 3 acres, which is, it's over 600 feet, I think, from front to back edge, we have over 21 feet of elevation change. And so that gave us some natural depth that we were really excited about, because that's going to allow us to have some deep, cool water on those hot summer days. But once we got everything cleared, it sat for like a year, and so that brings us to where we're at right now. Is everything grew up. All the grass grew up, and we had left some trees on there because I was still hesitant on the building. I didn't want to have it cleared and barren and not have any trees and then not have a pond.
Yeah, it took us longer to find a builder than I thought it would.
Yeah.
There was a lot out there, and there was a lot to choose from, and we wanted references and all this kind of thing, so I was actually kind of surprised.
Yeah, so I narrowed it down to 2 pretty quick, but there's a lot of guys that are excavation guys that don't actually build ponds. And so you have to be really careful in that process to make sure you get somebody that's built some ponds, but then also you want somebody that's built a pond to this magnitude. A cattle pond or like a little fishing pond, half acre or so, that's one thing. But when you're talking about building a lake, essentially, you really want somebody that knows what they're doing, because there's millions and millions of gallons that's going to be in this pond that's going to be putting a ton of hydraulic pressure against that levee, and the last thing you want it to do is to fail.
And that's one of the things in Arkansas. What is where you go from pond to lake? It's like a certain
2.4 acres or so, somewhere in there, and then it gets deemed a lake. I've joked about naming it B Lake because my name's Blake, so it'll be B Lake. But maybe we'll throw that into a later video and get some people voting on the names. My father-in-law keeps calling it Lake Banyo. So it's really brown water right now.
Yeah.
But once we got everything cleared, the next process that we talked about with the pond builders was was going to be coming in and figuring out how much water we had, coming into that area.
Right.
And so I knew that I had some like springs, but they weren't constant springs because we had a really bad drought last summer. As you can see, it's super dry right here.
Right.
And that scared me because the creek behind the house dried up for the first time. The water that we had, none of the springs were going. So I was like, oh man, did I make the right move?
Right.
So it really made me nervous that this could just stay dry. We'll have a big hole in the ground with no water in there. And so I was super nervous about that.
And it was a big investment to be worried about if it's going to hold water or not. I mean, huge investment.
Yeah, you have to have a plan B. Our plan B is to drill a well. We're still probably going to do that in the next, couple of weeks to month or so. I think that it would be awesome just to have that fresh water pouring in case we do hit another drought like you see here of water for the pond. But what one of the builders told us to do was to go out there and to do some test holes. And so here in just a second, that's what we're gonna be jumping into, is digging these test holes so that we can figure out how much water is actually going to be running into the property.
Watching this, I feel sorry for your dad. That's Blake's dad on the tractor.
I think we should have given him like a RZ mask.
And I don't think he has any. I'm not sure if he has any mask on right now.
No, he has a bandana with him all the time, but I'm not sure if he put it on.
I know that's going to be in the comments down below that everybody's going to be complaining that he doesn't have a mask on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I put a GoPro on the tractor, but that footage was just shot because it was so dusty, you couldn't see anything. All you see is a dust cloud constantly. This is what I was talking about. They wanted us to get our excavator and to go out and to dig down 4 feet deep, 4 to 5 feet deep. They wanted to see two different things from these test holes. They wanted to see how much clay material we had, and then also if they would fill up with water. And so they wanted to see how deep of clay we had before we hit rock, because you needed a certain ratio.
Right.
The reason we were bush hogging is because you take all the natural vegetation and all the roots and everything down, and it's easier if there's not grass or bushes or trees, stuff like that, when they're scraping all of that out of there. So they would scrape about a foot of all the topsoil off, and we'll see that at the end of the video of that kind of process starting. But they want to know how much clay. So they calculate how much clay to put into the levee and into the pond so that it's going to hold water. And that's what they're seeing here. We have so much topsoil, and then we have so much clay, and then how much slate is mixed into that clay, because you do need
to see the layers.
The layers, yeah.
As you look down the hole.
Right. And do you hit solid rock? Like, what areas have rock? So we would kind of created a grid across the pond where we started at the shallow end, and then we kind of stepped to the other side of the pond, about 30, 40 feet past it, and then we dropped down like another 50 to 100 feet, and just kind of staggered across the pond area where we were digging these test holes. Some were deep topsoil, where as you get further down the hill, you had deeper in topsoil because of all the sediment that has washed down over the years. And then as you got further up the hill, like towards the crest of some of the hills where some stuff had been excavated before, you would hit rock a whole lot quicker than you would on some of the other hills that hadn't been disturbed, where they had a really nice 2 to 3 feet of clay.
Right. So you said something about they wanted to be able to see if they would hold water. Was there like a time period of how long it should hold water, or should it just hold water constant forever?
Well, since we dug a couple through the center of the valley, as you see right here, that's kind of us staying right down the center of the valley. Since we knew there was, kind of our idea of a spring, because I knew there was always water kind of trickling out of the ground, we wanted to just see what would happen. We didn't know that they were going to fill up overnight. And so after we dug these, we went back out there the next morning, and they were actually full of water. And so for the pond builder and myself, that was just like a huge plus.
Right.
Because we knew there was that much water coming up out of the ground.
Well, one of the things I'm noticing through these 3 clips, obviously I wasn't here this day whenever y'all were doing this, but I'm noticing through these 3 different clips is the dirt's different color.
Yes.
This is 3 different spots in these 3 different clips,
Yeah.
and that first one was, you could see it, a lot of red clay.
Yeah.
But now we're all the way on the other end of the pond, it looks like.
Right.
And we're not seeing a lot of clay.
Yeah, so, there is quite a bit of clay in here. I thought the same thing. So I had to have the guy come out here and actually test the soil, kind of look at it, and tell me what it was. And I thought the same thing. I thought that the red clay was what I was looking for, but he said that the gray and this tan is also a good clay as well.
Okay.
It's just kind of more common to this area, where everything I ever thought was red clay.
Right.
And so there was actually a good, majority of clay in that area, mixed with that slate that they said was going to make an awesome base for this levee, because this levee is going to be 300 and something feet across, and it's going to be 20 something feet tall. And then we're going to have I think it said like a 3-to-1 ratio out. So if we went, 20 something feet up, then we're going to be going 60 feet wide from the center of each side of that levee. And this is just
massive levee.
Yeah. And this is just all the topsoil and stuff kind of coming off right here and getting ready to start building the levee. And that's the shot that you see running across there, is where that levee's going to join from the hillside from my house to the hillside across the way.
So this is the deep end of the pond.
Yes. Yeah. Eventually, where they're like that little dip before they start up the hill is going to be about 20 feet. And it's pretty awesome, because what they do is right now is they're pushing, I kind of got nervous, but they push all this dirt to the backside before they start building the core in the center of the levee. And then they use that to build it up. So I thought in my head, I'm like, hey, we're going to pile all this up on the hill over here and then push it over and down into place.
And they're like, we ain't moving it that far, and
Right.
we're not going to move that much dirt. So just kind of push it back to get it out of the way.
Yeah, but just kind of bring everything full circle. Like, this was 2 years in the planning, process, finding the right guy, finally breaking ground. So, right here is when I just got super giddy. Like, it is actually happening.
You're going to have a pond
Right.
in your backyard.
Right, and that shot from right there is from my patio area. So that shot is where I'm going to get to see and enjoy it, for the next several years to come.
Yeah, it's a neat shot. It's a neat view from that area. I like this camera that we had set up. This is just a time-lapse camera, and we were able to get a lot of shots from the whole process. So throughout the whole video, you're going to see a lot of this at the end of the videos.
Yeah, so guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, as you got to see the breaking ground on the pond. And next week, we are going to be jumping into the groundbreaking, so please check it out. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And we greatly appreciate your support. Y'all's support is what allows these videos to happen. So thank you so much, guys. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.